G'day, guys. Welcome to this week's Hash It Out. Joining me once again, we have Noah and Armenia. How are we, gentlemen?
Doing
Doing
pretty
well.
well.
Good to be here, as usual.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time in our ecosystem here at Ergo. We've just had the finalization or the completion of ErgoHack 6, Cypherpunk Finance. Some really interesting concepts. So let's sort of discuss that a little at length.
Sure. Where to start?
Maybe
Yeah,
we can
well,
talk about chain cash a bit, because I've read through the paper and the repo, and it's a bit challenging for me to understand that one. And I would imagine for some of our viewers, it's probably the same.
Sure. Well, it's a really interesting concept in terms of a form of money, right? It's a form of money that's backed by collateral and basically a signature of a recipient. So, in theory, you could have a monetary system where everybody puts up similar collateral. You could use the example of Ergo or something off chain like gold, or you can, in theory, create a system where people put up the collateral that they have, which may be different, to where, let's say, what's a really bad example? I have a chicken, you have a goat, and CW has a horse, right? So we put up, different forms of collateral and we sign it, right? And so in theory, if you circulate money and everyone is putting up some form of collateral and adding a signature to it, the longer that chain of signatures gets, the greater the assumption at some point, if you were to go down the list of people that had signed it, you would, in essence, be able to redeem the value of the note.
so kind of like permissionary notes in some respect.
Yeah, it's in some respect, and it's kind of weird because it's like also somewhat similar to like real estate, where you have chain of title, like who has signed the dollar, but in a way, it's a promissory note, right?
Yeah.
So if I promise that, I sign it to CW. CW signs it, passes it to Noah, and then Noah says, "Okay, I'm going to redeem this," and CW then let's say doesn't have collateral. Well, there's multiple holders in that chain of title.
Okay, so how do you connect sort of the off-chain worlds to something like this? Like you mentioned, gold.
Yeah, I think in the intro on the Git, he gave an example, like if you had a gold company and an oil company and a variety of different entities that were all pledging their own collateral, that over time, you would have not only something that had, let's say, a greater assumption based on the number of signatures, but also a greater variety of collateral, which makes the note somewhat unique, and also potentially like a weird stability factor, right? Because you're talking about collateral of different potential, commodities, assets, whatever, that all have their own kind of market conditions that they're subject to on a regular basis. And then there's there's like this simple, let's say, idea of like a community that wanted to create that type of collateral, where ultimately money is a strange thing in a way. It's like economic energy. I would say it's probably existed before there was any form of money, right? Like I have a bull and CW has a horse, right? And in the right conditions, good horse will take you a long distance, right? A good bull will give you a lot of cattle. So then there's a certain energy of trade, and trade always has required a certain trust, right? And so having some standard form of currency it kind of creates a group trust, right? In a way, it's an illusion, a group illusion game that I guess the world plays, where we have these funny paper notes and we say, it's worth something, right?
Yeah, it's the
it's a
perception
confidence
there.
game, But
where the majority are good actors and everyone does everything in a fair light. I think that sort of plays a big part as well.
yeah, and so in theory, if your name is on it, right, in like the chain cash scenario, whether it's more of like a local trading group or a larger system, which is at this point is just kind of high level thinking what could be possible, right? It creates a system where you have interconnected trust, and you can actually backtrack the transaction to Genesis, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a fascinating thought, I guess.
Yeah, and that's just one proposal. Obviously, you can get quite technical there. Alex, I think, he's providing contracts and everything on the Git and the paper. So he's put a lot of thought and effort into this one, but that's just one of many submissions for this ErgoHack. Joe, yourself, you made a proposal for this SISP, so Sigma USD Improvement Protocol. A proposal, sorry. How'd you go on your proposal, putting it together?
I didn't get as far as I wanted to be honest. But I got quite a bit there to where people could at least scope it out at kind of like a high level, where my mind is at. Somehow I ended up with a governance token for SigUSD. And it's something that I've always wanted to kind of get rid of, because I'm not always the biggest fan of governance in these type of situations. Because if we do make a change, right, it's like changing the rules of the game after kickoff, right? No, I'm not really a fan of that. But there are some, I don't know. SigUSD does work in terms of stability, right? I think the incentives are unbalanced. My initial proposal way back when it first launched was we need to look into dynamic fees, like pick some target and then build probably linear fees around that. And I guess after more thought, I took the stablecoin improvement protocol a different direction, where I was, considering more of the reserve side. How do you create a reserve of something that's over collateralized to where you have almost like a form of insurance that can potentially step in the event of failure, which nobody likes to talk about failure in terms of stable coins, but ultimately, if you want to build a good one, that's kind of where your head needs to be at.
Yeah. And you touched on having dynamic or linear fees as well. And so how would that look? Basically, the more you mint or redeem, the higher fee you pay?
Well, in theory, if you wanted to do that, which wasn't really part of my proposal, I guess. But in theory, if you wanted to do that within the current range, you'd probably pick like a target of 600, right? Just because that's dead center of the range where SigUSD floats, and then you'd essentially make that like the most economically efficient place to both mint and redeem. And you'd probably need to encourage people in one direction when you're closer to one side of the scale, or set economic conditions to encourage them in the other. But ultimately, I do think that moving more towards like protocol equity is the better option.
And that would be from some kind of fee, or?
Yeah, I think you could probably do it with the existing fee structure. Nobody likes higher fees. You would just take a portion of that and you'd put it into a secondary reserve. Now the question is, longer term, if you put the right fee model, and I also proposed like a dual mint where you could mint SigUSD and Sig RSV at the same time for like the optimal lowest fee. And so over time, in theory, you could build a secondary reserve that, isn't really an economic actor. It's more of like insurance fund, to where, in time, if it got big enough, it could cover like 100% of the SIG-USD that's issued, and then you have kind of like a weird backstop behind something that's over collateralized, which is just redundancy, which is nice to see.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
over time, you could either, let's say, burn part of that, or you could potentially pay part of that back out to SIG reserve holders, because generally they get diluted. Or you could potentially put some of that in like a reemission contract for storage rent purposes, where you're actually paying miners into the future from that reserve, or you could do all three. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility there in terms of, sometimes burning stuff is pretty stupid in crypto. I hate to say that, but it's like, hey, I have $100, I'm gonna light it on fire, and it's a good thing, right? If we're looking at this as a form of money, I don't think that makes sense. If you look at it more like a collectible, I guess it just became more rare, right? But I don't know.
The interesting thing with the fees is that if you take a portion of the current fees and divert it to some kind of, I'm looking at your document here, the protocol owned equity, it kind of shifts the incentives for the reserve a bit, I would think.
And the normal reserve would grow a little bit slower, which makes SIG-USD a little bit more inefficient, and it's already capitally inefficient. But the reality is there's no lender of last resort. There's no Do Kwon to step in and say, "Don't worry, everybody. Like, I'm going to deploy my money and save everybody." That didn't end well.
More capital.
Steady, lads.
Yeah. So if we're gonna have like autonomous, let's just say autonomous protocols, right? It's interesting to see how you can build some insurance mechanism behind that. That's also autonomous and still have balanced incentives. This is kind of where my head was at anyway.
Yeah, nice. So that's touching on two, obviously yourself and Alex, but we've had numerous things. So NFT,
there's been a lot of cool
marketplaces, spinning up nodes on TVs and fridges or proposed anyway. NetNotes, Tizen, Lithos. These are just ones popping off the top of my head. Just run through a list. Lilium, Sigma O, it's options. Like the privacy guide as well, I think is huge for the community as well. Like just getting people's minds in and thinking about things from that perspective, who may not necessarily think like, or have the perception that they're not doing anything wrong, so why should they have to worry about privacy? But it gives some nice key points about what they should consider and everything like that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I just saw that there's like a really nice user-friendly sort of peer-to-peer escrow service, and it's got like a really, it's kind of a funny website UI, but I'll have to get on there and play with it. It's been such a nice turnout on this hackathon. It really makes me optimistic given all the market conditions. Like so many cool projects came out of this one. It makes me happy.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm excited to dig into things. I haven't really, I know that when projects actually formally submit like their final submission, usually there's a lot of documentation and code and videos and all kinds of great stuff. That takes a while to really like chew on and dig through. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. So, but just like from the onset, big ideas. It's exciting to see.
Yeah, like Noah was saying, it's an awesome turnout and such a broad range of topics and submissions as well. Like I just ran through a couple there, but I think the depth of what people have submitted as well, like they've actually put some really great thought into this. There's great documentation. The people who are submitting code, like actual sort of MVPs and everything like that. Is it the Ergo stats, the iOS? Like the UI on that, I think that looks fantastic. Like obviously that's just one operating system. Hopefully you can port it to Android or look into other platforms like desktop and everything. And I think even the videos, like yourself, Noah, you produced a video on the Ergo node and mobile wallet and things. And I think Nico's as well. That was fantastic for just developers in the community as well to keep important points in mind in regards to UI, who they're targeting, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I was so pleased with Nico's video, and he's a good character. I like Nico a lot. Yeah, I really respect his work, and he was pretty excited that we asked him to do it. You know, it's clear he's pretty passionate about what he does, and I think he was pretty excited to sort of share how he values the things that he cares about. I was really stoked about that one.
Yeah, a lot of the points that he made, basically, it's like, I know we've sort of mentioned it a couple of times in different forums and media and things, and it's basically not shouting blockchain, but shouting your product and making your product known, what it does, what it achieves, not sort of how it achieves it, if that kind of makes sense. So, yeah, it actually even got me thinking. Some really great points in there, very educational. So anyone who hasn't sort of seen that, I'll put a link to that video down below and encourage everyone to jump on there. But even yourself, Noah, you created a nice little video. Do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown on what you did there?
Yeah, I think on the next one I'll do it a bit differently. Maybe try to make it a little sexier than I did, but this is my first go, and as far as I know, I covered all the bases. But basically, it was just the process involved with using your mobile wallet and directing it to a local node on your own hardware, so that you have full node security and you can access that mobily. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And also,
you're not depending.
Yeah,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say the point that you were just about to make.
Yeah, you're not depending on others for accessing your assets and transactions and things like that. And it's very easy to do now that we have HashItOut, which the mobile wallet and HashItOut play really nice together in that way.
Yeah. HashItOut has been great. It's a great asset in the ecosystem.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've actually been talking to our favorite app developer, Aberg, a little about sort of what's coming up. A number of miners have actually reached out to me wanting to be able to basically interact with DeFi and everything like that. The integrating Ergo Pay and that sort of thing into HashItOut itself. Sort of getting away from the dependency of browser extensions and that sort of thing. A number of them want to actually run a full node, have the wallet security, etc., but still also be able to interact with the DeFi ecosystem here at Ergo. So, yeah, that's it should be coming soon. I'll just say that. I won't say any time frames that he mentioned, but I'll just say soon. I won't throw him under the bus.
It's probably appreciated.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I got nothing to add.
One thing I was going to ask, Joe, you're a judge for this ErgoHack. How do you think you're going to go getting through everything? You mentioned that you've given things a bit of a brief overview previously, but yeah, how do you think that's going to go?
Well, it's hard. Like, I don't want to say every time that it comes time I regret my decision to be a judge, but it's hard. There's a lot of good ideas, right? Then you get into implementation, and some of them we've seen some MVPs. Then you also look on like the documentation side, and going through everything. How easy is it to kind of understand what's happening, follow? It's not an easy choice. Last one, I really wish there was more prizes. I was at the end, I was more frustrated than happy. So I don't like being a judge, but I'll do it. And I hope that everybody's happy with my decision. Whatever it is, I haven't even started to dig through things yet. Last time I was the slowest too, and that's kind of sucked because everybody's like, "Hey, when are the prizes getting paid out?" And it's like, I don't want to skip. I don't want to skip people's work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, give everyone a fair shot.
Yeah, and I also, so it's like a busy time. So hopefully this time I won't be the slowest.
Yeah, it was cool to see. Even with, I don't know, man. The Ergo hacks always get me just feeling really good about our community, and like there was this one project, open board, and he had to table it just because of life stuff getting in the way, but it has the intention to continue working on the idea, and I feel like that's just kind of the Ergo spirit, people are here because they want to make cool stuff, and the prizes are a nice incentive, but I don't know. I look at hackathons and other ecosystems, and it feels very astroturfed compared to what we've got going here.
Yeah.
I think I was watching one of the AMAs, and Dan was talking about that too. Yeah, it's just such a great grassroots, organic kind of community effort.
Yeah, looking at the ideas that were out there for this hackathon, I think a lot of them were better than mine.
Well, how are you going to mark yourself?
Yeah, 0. I'll abstain.
Yeah. No,
Because the reality is, like with the stablecoin, I didn't really ever want to do anything with the governance token. I was just kind of hoping it would work out, and then I'd burn it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the guy that's like, "Hey, I'm going to lead the charge to change this." All right.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is just start a larger discussions, like dynamic fees are an option, protocol owned equity is an option. If there is protocol owned equity, you can do a variety of fee structures. You could potentially have like Ergo unique payouts to miners. You could, treat it kind of like a dividend over time for SIG reserve holders. You could do a lot of interesting things there, but I don't want to tell people what to do there because, in a way, I'm not a fan of governance. I even say that in there that, when we do change it, let's hopefully make it, actually, autonomous, burn it, let it be immutable.
The interesting thing about SIG-USD specifically is, or I guess AGE-USD, is that it's really hard for a lot of people to understand it and the mechanics of it. And because of that, I think people don't step up to sort of participate in those kinds of discussions. And people are already so disinclined to do that anyway. But especially with AGUSD, I think, just because it's fairly complicated for an average person to understand. It makes it tough to have like a meaningful evaluation of how it could be improved,
Yeah,
I
think a good example of that actually is we've had a number of our community members who are pretty renowned here in the Ergo ecosystem in regards to jumping into certain reserve coins, not mentioning any names, Gaza, but jumping it, like numerous people throughout the ecosystem are jumping on and discussing the intricacies of the protocol itself, especially with the Jet and Shen, the Cody release of Jet and Shen. There, a lot of people were under the assumption that everything's just like to the moon. Basically, there's going to be no issues with the protocol. There's no basic assumptions being made, no questions being asked, and things like that. So when people were actually raising these concerns or possibilities of how things actually occur and over time with this protocol, a lot of people were sort of dismissive at first, but actually had ended up coming around and seeing the light. So I think that's one thing. Another good thing of our community actually is that education-based things and not sort of name calling and disrespecting people or anything like that. Just coming from a good-hearted spirit, wanting to have these nice conversations and try and help everyone and make everyone aware of sort of the pros and cons of everything.
Yeah, and it honestly, it may be a little weird that, here you have a stable coin that, I don't know, in the bear market has been stable, right? If you look at Ergo's chart since it was released, it's been pretty volatile and it's always maintained its peg. But I still don't think the incentives are balanced, right? And it's so, maybe it's not popular to say that, especially with other variants out there, but it just doesn't feel complete to me. It never has.
So yeah, we'll start the conversation and hopefully everyone jumps on board and wants to jump in and contribute. And that's another great thing about our community as well. We'll get some pretty cool in-depth discussion about the pros and cons and nut everything out. And it's like a big boy discussion, I guess, or big person discussion. People can jump in and sort of submit their own proposals, their pros and cons, flesh out all the nuts and bolts of what's going on and ultimately come to some sort of conclusion. Obviously, that's the hard thing. It's not one of the prettiest things about governance, and it's one thing I think we sort of do reasonably well here in Ergo.
Yeah, and I just think it's what's missing for the most part in crypto as a whole. The ability to even challenge your own product, think critically, ask good questions, instead of like, hey, don't talk against my bag, sir. Like it's hard. It's hard sometimes to even have intelligent discussions. It's always more like, oh, what's going to be the next whatever.
Yeah, well, it becomes very kind of authoritarian in a way. It's like people don't want to be challenged on their assumption about something being well designed or not, but like how can we progress if we're not questioning the way that we're doing things,
Yeah, I mean, but that's the truth, is people usually have an economic incentive that they want to move in a certain direction, so then you can't really, I don't know, always have good discussions like, does this actually make sense? And, long term, what's the stability of it? What are the risks? A lot of times that type of discussion is off the table. And that's why, for the most part, I don't think it's universally true, but I do think for the most part, we've seen a lot of shitty DeFi products because people are more interested in, the number, which, can be like this ephemeral fucking rocket ship to the moon type deal and then dump on everybody. Instead of actual like long-term critical thinking around risk and like proper management.
Yeah. And it's we talk about this all the time, don't we? All the rocket ships and all kinds of shit like that. And when someone comes in talking critically, questions something, some aspect of the protocol or the product, what someone's building and things like that, and you're instantly dismissed and you just don't get it. No one gives a shit about what you say until something falls apart, and you kind of can just find, I know people don't do this, but you can kind of think in your own mind and just go, well, I told you so. Like, you know what I mean? It's
no, you could look at UST. There was people out there that were actually vocal, which at that point, was unpopular because it's seed funded by exchanges. So it had a tremendous amount of marketing behind it, saying, hey, there's a problem, guys. There's these points of failures, are there. And it's, the response was, have fun staying poor. Like that's the worst. This is the worst critical thinking I can think of.
Yeah. It's also just so demeaning.
But having someone raising points like that, which ultimately we saw with time come to fruition, and being initially just basically shat on by that comment, have fun staying poor, that could have saved a lot of people that heartache and things like that. And people don't just jump on board because they want to see the number go up. And I think UST will be one of those things that is forever remembered for how things shouldn't be done.
Until next time.
Until next time. Yeah.
There's
Until
always
next time.
another
Yeah,
fucking
like there will be
shitcoin
people.
Ponzi out there.
There will be people that learn, right, and they start asking better questions.
Yeah.
They start thinking more critically, but they learn through kind of the scar they carry, unfortunately. And then you have new people. I don't know that come in, and it's unfortunate. And there's so like I can't. I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine coming into crypto these days and seeing like all the blinking lights and big numbers, and it's hard to even learn to ask good questions, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I know once again we've touched on this numerous times. Know your assumptions, get in, think critically, think about yourself. You see influencers just shilling coin X, coin Y. Obviously, they've made big positions that they've probably got.
And some of them I've seen their price sheets. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
I've seen their price sheets. Like it's a job. It's no different than somebody reading like I don't know, the infomercial on TV. Like it's just fake.
So what do we need?
Yeah, most of crypto media is like that.
ShamWow, 1995.
Yeah. Whatever happened with CoinDesk, by the way? Didn't they?
They were for sale at one point. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe they
it's
got
gone a
bought.
bit
Who
quiet at
knows?
the moment, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I've seen their price sheets too. That's why we're not on there.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, Barry. Oh, Barry. So spitting things back around to ErgoHacks, this one's just concluded. We've seen a great turnout. We've got to jump through the judging process. We have analytic level. Joe, yourself have to do that. There's still a little ways to go, but what's one thing that you'd like to see sort of for the future ErgoHack?
You're talking like
a next
like
one, ErgoHack 7.
ErgoHack 7.
There's a number of sort
You
of
mean
ideas
like
floating around.
Are you talking like a process change or like a new theme?
Yeah.
Possible. Well, we'll start with theme and then we'll talk about process.
One hackathon idea that I've always liked, and it actually came from UCW, so I have to give you credit, is a type of cross hack where, like, if I had project A, I try to improve project B, and project B tries to improve project A, and so you get people looking at each other's code base, UI, potential features, and so you actually try to hack someone else's project. I always thought that was a neat idea. Obviously, scaling would be another potential thing that would be neat. I think that one of these days we need to have one that's more it's around Sigma protocols. I think that would be neat. There's a lot of good ideas out there.
Yeah, oracles once those are.
Yeah, once that's
that comes
there.
through.
Yeah.
If Rosen, you could even do like cross-chain, hackathon type. Yeah, there's a lot of neat idea. And who knows, maybe even one of these days, since we continually get shit about it, we'll do like a marketing hackathon, right? That would be interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, there's this one project I've seen on Twitter. They're trying to incentivize social engagement and marketing, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if their token really has any value, but it's a neat idea at the very least. And
so maybe that would be a good one day. It's usually something that like the Ergo Foundation discusses, and there's always a lot of ideas, and we try to somewhat keep it in sync with new things in the network. Which if like the new Oracle framework were further along, maybe it would have been the Oracle hack or something like that. I don't know. I've put it out for discussion, see what people think.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's tough trying to narrow down a concept or a theme because there's so many ideas out there. There's so many frameworks. There's so many products what people want to build. Providing the little guideline there, and also obviously providing incentives for people to participate, like with prize pools through the foundation, and possibly co-sponsorship. Obviously, this one was co-sponsored by ErgoPad, so thank you very much, Marty and team, for jumping on board there. But yeah, it's a tricky one, because yes, you do have the theme. It could be, say, interoperability, for instance, but then someone wants to jump on and they end up doing oracles and all kinds of bits and pieces. So yeah, it's exciting seeing what people come up with, but then it's also exciting but also troubling trying to narrow down a theme, just because there are so many amazing ideas and potential products out there.
One downside to organic growth is it's unexpected, right? And that's a beautiful thing. Or, I had no idea what people were going to think of or submit in this ErgoHack, and a lot of great ideas.
They're trying to come up with a theme that people will get excited about is, I think, is kind of the name of the game. And yeah, like I said before, we had such great turnout on this. The nice thing about the cypherpunk finance thing is it's kind of broad. Like, there's so many ways that you can engage with that kind of thinking in a hackathon like this, and we saw some really cool stuff.
Yep, definitely. So both you gentlemen have had a sort of pretty integral part of sort of putting the hack together, being judges, doing things, management behind the scenes, and all kinds of things. From a process perspective, sort of what improvement would you say that we could probably, well, what's something that we could possibly improve going forward?
Well, I think that documentation and access has been improving tremendously, thanks to Mark's work.
He's a machine. He works tirelessly.
And I think that's always something that can improve, right? It's always something that can grow as the ecosystem grows, and who knows, maybe even we get some redundancy there one of these days. We're starting to see that with some of our basic infrastructure, which is really nice. Multiple Explorer instances as an example, and a lot of community-oriented tools, and having those built out for developers, I think is huge. In terms of like internally, there's always processes we could do better. In terms of planning, execution, probably maybe even broadcasting this sooner. Right, some hackathons, have a tremendous amount of runway before they start.
Something that I attempted to do last hackathon behind the scenes, and I didn't really do it for this one, but this one had better turnout, which is kind of funny, is reaching out to developers from other communities that I thought might be interested in, trying to expand the pool of interest. But yeah, it's a tough sell, I think, to get somebody to learn a new ecosystem and a new scripting language and all that.
Yeah, and the reality is, listen, you can look at some of the larger ecosystems, they're at hackathons, or, sometimes they'll have $1 million prize, right? $500,000 prize. They have a lot more on the table versus, the Ergo Foundation is not, like this powerhouse in the ecosystem with huge influence in terms of funding, right? It's just not what it was set up to be. There's a lot of foundations out there that really are dominant in terms of funding and chain development, and Ergo's relatively humble, and that's a big plus. And it also sucks when you look at the price sheets of CoinDesk and the cost of some listings, and sometimes it does not work in our favor. But I do think that over time there's value there, just because it I don't know, reaches the people in the right mindset, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I believe so. For myself, one thing that I've learned, or many things that I've learned, is basically the entire process. So this is the first one that I've been involved in from start to finish, and sort of the management side of it. And I put together a basic sort of run sheet of sort of timeframes and what actually needs to be produced and things like that. And there's a lot of things that I didn't cover, things coming up unexpected, which is one thing that I've added to that list personally. So that's one part of the process that I can now foresee and basically help me on the planning side of it, basically with documentation, requests for graphics, videos, all that sort of the whole planning process. So moving forward, I think that things will be a lot more smoother, hopefully. So that's one respect. But yeah, definitely take all that feedback on board as well, because just even in regards to announcing and giving that long sort of runway, that's all well and good. But one thing now is trying to figure out what's the theme for ErgoHack 7, like we sort of just touched on. So definitely this discussion will start now, basically, and start figuring all that out and moving forward for the next one.
Yeah, be careful where you ask too. Somebody asked me today, when are you going to get some kind of shit coin that goes crazy? Oof. Put that
When
as
Joe Coin.
Yeah, and put that as an ErgoHack. That's not.
Oh boy.
Shitcoin.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, I mean,
reward everybody with comment.
but that type of I don't know, big ideas come to the table. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's so much noise in this industry, both in terms of like the influencer side and then kind of like the mass news media side. It's good to just tune that out and go back to like core good ideas that are interesting and see what we can do with them.
Yeah. Having that grassroots thing, you've got people here like-minded, they just want to build cool shit. Like, I can't wait to be able to spin up a node on my TV. How cool is that? Put a video out thinking a node on your TV. Who's doing shit like that? You know what I mean? You just get people jumping on board and want to build cool shit. Running a node that's independent through a browser, like the redundancy that's building out there, even that's cool. I know actually remember Kushti's response in that. I'm like, how cool is that? You got someone jumping on board and doing something. There's numerous ideas. It's pretty cool to see the ecosystem expanding from and providing these building blocks of ideas and code and everything like that. A number of these projects, if not all, will be open source. And I'm just like, I like to see a number of these actually going on now and then building a viable product and things as well. So it's exciting times for the ecosystem expanding and once again, another successful ErgoHack.
Yeah. It's important to remember that, over time, open source code, if it's composable and it's built right, it can create really powerful toolkits for people. We're still in the early stages of that, but I do think that over time we'll amass enough information, enough, open source kind of standards that people can build really complex products in a very nice fashion due to kind of the modular design of things.
Yep, definitely. All right, gentlemen, we're coming up to time. Is there any last words you want to wrap up here, or let's finalize things now?
Sure, I'll try not to be the slowest judge, but don't judge me if I am, because I probably will be.
If you are, what's the accountability?
Just beat me up, beat me down. Public flogging.
We're going to hold a meme contest.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll add is if there's any kind of guides or videos that you'd like to see in future hackathons, we always do. We try to get some videos for the hackathons and would love ideas about what you guys would like to see. So feel free to leave comments and we can sort of keep tabs on what you guys might want to check out next time.
A very good comment there. I agree with everything, and sort of one thing I want to touch on also, I want to thank all the participants jumping on board and donating a couple of weeks of your time. everyone else who's helped behind the scenes from the planning and everything like that. So, but you, there's Angie, Glasgow, numerous people, Marcelo, Andy, just off the top of my head. Sorry if I've missed anyone. ErgoPad, Marty, for co-sponsoring this hackathon. Once again, another successful hackathon, and hopefully we get the results out soon. Joe?
I'll try.
All right. Take care, guys. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
See you
Have
then.
a good one.
Take care.